Welcome, folks. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Nice to see you in this new year. New Year's greetings, one of the New Years we celebrate around here. And I also invite in, as usual, a sound from the more than just human world. And I'm wondering if you can guess who this is. Anyone get that one? Yeah, that one might be a little easy in terms of dog, but not so much in terms of breed. That is a dog breed called the India Pariah dog, which might be a troubling name for some of us, that word pariah meaning outcast. And because of that, some people call the breed Indian native dog, Indian street dog, all sorts of other names. You've likely seen a dog of this breed recently on your social media, and I'll be talking about that in just a moment. I see Jess already figured that one out, as did Kathy and a few others based on the hearts. Yes, we will be talking about that in a moment. But first, welcome to the Compassion Consortium. I'm Reverend Sarah Bowen, and I'm joined today, as always, by co-founders Reverend William Melton and Victoria Moran, Animal Chaplain Jen Baker, our irreplaceable techie Phil, and our advisory board lead Dave Simon. Our special spiritual guest is Pria Acharya, a certified mindfulness teacher whose work explores the intersection of mindfulness, compassion, and ethical living. Animal chaplains Jess Hoffman and Wendy Brtalik are also here on the team today. We've got a full house. And one of our chaplains in training, Desiree Chantilly, is here to help with our closing blessing. In order to ensure we don't have disruptions during the service, we've turned off most of the Zoom sharing functions, so you won't find those active, but we look forward to seeing you and hearing your voices later after the service during our small group fellowship time. We meet for Sunday service, as most of you know, on the third Sunday of every month. If you're new to us, welcome. We are an interfaith, interspiritual, and interspecies community. And if those concepts are new to you, I invite you to read more about our approach and philosophy using the link that will be in the chat, which is compassionconsortium.org/about for those of you watching today on the YouTube replay. Yes, you can watch this service again or send it to people if you find it useful. At the beginning of each service, I offer some sort of acknowledgement to the beings of a habitat that I'm in or going to. I am home, and all I have to say today is snow, 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 snow. So I'd like to acknowledge the beings of many habitats who are named after that element, including the snow leopard. I haven't seen one of those. Snow hare, snow goose, snow fox, and snow owl. Maybe some of those are in your habitat. Now I want to go back to talking about dogs for a moment. This past week, someone in a gathering that I was in mentioned the news from Minnesota about Renee Nicole Good, who was involved in a fatal encounter with a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent while her dog was in the back seat of the car. The person noted that she wondered how the dog was, but felt conflicted about raising that when the incident was talked about. And so I reflected, when situations become very heated and controversial, animals are rarely mentioned as subjects who are involved in those incidents. They're backgrounded. And it can indeed become risky to raise interspecies issues at those times. Many of us have had the experience of being concerned about humans and animals involved in some sort of incident, and then been accused of caring about animals more than humans. And once a situation gets heated like that, it's hard to get people to understand sometimes that we care about humans and animals, and for that matter, habitats too, that we see beings and their contexts and their environments as deeply interlinked. even if some people struggle to understand that view. So then I thought about Aloka, the peace dog, who's getting a lot of very positive media attention right now. Aloka's been with a group of Buddhist monks since 2022, and in October joined them on a walk for peace starting in Fort Worth, Texas, headed toward Washington, D.C., with an expected arrival in February. That is a lot of walking, folks. Social and traditional media have kept us updated on where Aloka is, about their recent surgery, how they might return to walking for 10 minutes at a time, all sorts of detail. And I'm in a lot of conversations where Aloka's name does come up. In contrast, in the case of the incident in Minnesota, when I read the media, it said a dog in the back seat of a car with no name. So I did a little research. People magazine later reported the dog survived the shooting and was reunited with Good's widow. The Minnesota Star Tribune is the only place I could find a reference to the dog's name. Good's neighbor shared that the Australian Shepherd was called Hazelnut. So I also find myself wondering about Hazelnut's experience of being in that car. You might too if you've seen the video. Is Hazelnut now grieving her human companion? I don't know. We don't talk about that due to some of the other dynamics in the story. Which leads me to think about named and unnamed animals in the way that scholar Judith Butler has observed that some animals, some lives, are rendered invisible and some also ungrievable. Dogs are deeply valued and emotionally prized in many ways in our culture. There is no question of that. And then there's this other side, right? The invisible or the abhorrent or frankly, the perplexing, the dog meat farms and the overcrowded animal shelters and the puppy mills and the beagles and other breeds used in laboratory research. Dogs displaced by war or disaster, street dogs treated as nuisances. I don't need to go on. You all know this, right? Right? It's such a contrast. Living with compassion, the way that we talk about compassion around here, means being willing to see all of that and to deal with it in ways that don't reduce us to gooey depression blobs. And I think that's precisely why we need dogs like Aloka. Their story can give us balance. We need to see canids treated well and traveling with seeming purpose and autonomy. Dogs who perhaps, in spite of everything our kind does to their kind, might embody hope and peace beyond what we project onto them. Does Aloka think about hope or peace? I don't know. I can't know. As Nagy said, what is it like to be a bat? But I'll take it as a possibility. And it's also why we need to think about dogs like Hazelnut, too, to ponder their potential trauma and grief. And what is Hazelnut thinking right now? That mixture of concern and hope inherent in animal advocacy and activism is why we need the Compassion Consortium now more than ever. We need places we can bring all of our concerns and name them and not be invalidated, to talk about Aloka, to talk about Hazelnut, to talk about a lot of other creatures we'll talk about today who are usually unnamed and many who are judged as ungrievable. We need a place where we can be supported through our perplexity in spiritual practices and conversations and prayers and blessings and fellowship, which is what we're doing here today, folks. So to wrap up my time, my opening musings, my invitation to you today is twofold. First, think about the asymmetry of how we treat dogs and how that might inform our advocacy. And second, to think about how this community supports you in this messy world and how you can help support it so we can all continue to thrive. That's it for me, folks. Over to you, Jen and William.
All right. At the beginning of each Sunday service, we remind ourselves of the tenets of agreement which this community strives to uphold. Each month we focus on one tenet, and this month it is Tenet 2, and it will be read by Compassion Consortium founder William Melton. As William reads the words aloud, we encourage everyone to take time to contemplate how the tenets can impact and influence your daily life. If you're unfamiliar with all 10 of our tenets, please read the full list at the link just placed in the chat. And William.
We recognize the common moral principles inherent within all wisdom and traditions.
Thank you, William. Let's just take a moment to mindfully meditate on this idea. And now over to Sarah and Wendy.
These are great tenets, aren't they, folks? If you want to read them all, please go to the link in the chat. Hey there, Wendy.
Hello.
So my partner today for our interspecies spiritual practice is Wendy Brtalik. Let me tell you a little bit about Wendy. As an ordained animal chaplain, Wendy explores interspecies bonds and provides spiritual and emotional support to animal caregivers, to animal companions with empathy, wholeheartedness, and dignity. In addition, she leads business development. This is going to be important in a moment. Business development and strategic partnerships at the Art of Monday Morning, which helps organizations incorporate mindfulness into their culture. We talk about that word around here a lot. Supporting everything from stress reduction and performance to communication and alignment with an organization's core values. She believes in the power of human connection and practical change. I like that, Wendy. Me too. When Wendy's not collaborating with others, like she is in her business or with me today, you'll find her exploring nature with her dog, George, traveling, or supporting local animal rescues. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So our practice today that we're gonna engage you guys in is practicing mindfulness and embodied peace. So in Roman Catholicism, January 1st is the World Day of Peace, established by Pope Paul VI in 1968, or so I am told. I wasn't around then. Annual messages that are offered explicitly link peace with social justice, poverty, war, and care for creation. And as I just mentioned, the Buddhist monks and Aloka are walking to DC and are also practicing peace, not as aggressive protest or demonstrative march, but as a mindful embodied practice. It's a mindful embodied practice. I've heard it said they are trying to walk peace into being. Walk peace into being. Think about that for just a second. So Wendy, you recently caught up with these folks because they came near you. And so Phil's going to play a short video that you took. We're going to get your reflections for a moment. I think George was there with you too.
Yes.
And then we'll do a short peace meditation. So Phil, could you bring on the crowds actually? Thank you, Phil. So we've got a feel for this, a little bit of a feel for this, and some of you may have also been in similar situations. But Wendy, can you tell me what this was like? It's pretty packed. Did you get any feeling of peace with this?
Yeah, Sarah, it's a great question. So just for brief background for those on the service today, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, where the monks just passed through Wednesday and Thursday of this week. And it was really important for me to experience this. And, I think this is kind of one of those prime examples, where in mindfulness we have to remember and in life that we can't control the world around us. We can only control ourselves and the reaction that we have to external circumstances. As the video showed, it was quite busy. I wouldn't say more so than I expected, but there was a lot of hubbub. We had gotten there about 90, my dog and I went about 90 minutes early. So it was just gradually getting busier and busier. I mean, to the point where there was even people selling Walk for Peace shirts, and things like that. Stuff you'd hope not to see in that setting, but I guess it's expected. And so, for me in that moment, it was really important to look for glimpses of humanity, to look around at the gentleman who walked over with treats for George, the peaceful individuals that were arriving with gifts of flowers and bottled water and things. It was a really chilly day, but I took some time to focus, on the sun on my face and to breathe in the fresh air and kind of just really try to stay present and connected in the moment, myself and George. And I'll say this, when the monks did arrive in that moment, despite that it looked a little hectic perhaps, there was a noticeable shift in the air. Things slowed down, they quieted, and it was a real just symbol of peace in that moment. You could feel the hush and the shift come over everybody in that moment.
Hmm. All right. So, do you think the Buddhist monks maintain that peaceful feeling using some of the same types of things that you do? Or what would you, as a mindfulness teacher, think is going on here? If I'm walking on the street and there's that many people, I'm probably not going to be the calmest. Of course, then again, I'm not a Buddhist monk. So what do you think?
Yeah, and yet you could be right. Walks of this sort. First of all, walks aren't they're not new. The monks have been participating in similar walks like this. These larger scale for just over 3 decades now, and it takes practice. For them just like it would for anybody else. I think sometimes I reflect on the question. How would anybody find peace in those moments? Generally you focus on what's happening around you. You focus on the intent of what you want, and then you try to bridge that gap. I think what I have found and what I noticed in some of the research I've done on this is, they utilize combinations of, deeply ingrained meditative practices and again, that internal focus rather than the focus on external surroundings. I think focusing on things like the physical sensation of walking. Some of the monks, not all, but many of them actually walk barefoot, to connect with the ground under their feet. They tend to walk very silently, which protects their calm, embracing what's happening around them, but staying internally focused. They look to practice extreme minimalism, carrying, only what's needed, oftentimes just the clothes on their back and perhaps a gift of flowers or something like that from the public. And they stay true to their focus, which is primarily on radiating loving kindness. All of those different things, again, which you'll note are all things we're all capable of, helps to maintain their peace.
And so Wendy's going to engage us here in just a moment in a practice so that we can be mindful. We can stretch that muscle, right? To be mindful amidst the busyness and the noise around us in our daily lives and the challenges of advocacy, of advocacy in general and animal advocacy. I would be remiss not to mention there's a holiday tomorrow based on another walk, right? So tomorrow or not based on a walk, but tomorrow is Martin Luther King Jr. Day here in the United States, right? January 19th. So these types of walks and these types, have lots of different characters and flavors and feelings to them and purposes to them. But we're not always, I can't go out today. There's so much damn snow here, Wendy. Excuse my fancy clergy word there. I got about 12 inches of snow here, so I'm not walking 2,300 miles anywhere.
Yeah.
So could you walk us through a short practice that might help us if we're not able to go out and walk right now to become more mindful in this moment?
Yeah, Sarah, I sure will. And just before getting into that, I just wanted to kind of remind everybody on this call that, one of the most exciting and I guess hopeful elements for me when it comes to mindfulness is, despite or in addition to its rooted, the centuries of rooted history here and science-backed evidence, anyone can practice it. And that's what we're about to find out right now. Um, I think one of the most simple practices that I really participate in that can really be done, whether you're in a yoga studio or in a break room at a shelter or standing in place wherever you are, is the simple reminder of bringing your mind back to your breath. My business partner always uses the phrase, brains are going to brains are going to wander, and that's okay. That's natural and normal. But the practice, and again, that muscle retention of reminding your brain to refocus is what I'd like to look at here today.
Let's do it.
So, okay. Well, first, I would just ask that if everybody can get comfortable, find a comfortable position. I think we're all sitting, so I won't ask anybody to lie down right now. And just allow your body to settle. And if it's comfortable for you, go ahead and close your eyes. And let's take a slow, deep breath in through your nose and exhale softly through your mouth. Now we're going to just allow our breath to return to its natural rhythm. Simply notice it, the air moving in and out, the rise and fall of your chest or belly. As you focus on your breath, thoughts are going to naturally arise. That's okay. When you notice that your mind is wandering, perhaps to future plans, memories, or distractions, go ahead and pause for a moment. Gently acknowledge the thought or thoughts that you're having without judgment. There's no need to push these thoughts away. As you notice them, kindly guide your attention back to your breathing, back to this inhale and this exhale. Each time that you return, you're strengthening your ability to be present in the moment. Continue breathing for another moment, noticing each moment as it is. In and out. As we come to a close, let's take one slightly deeper breath together and feel the steadiness that we've created. When you're ready, gently open your eyes, and our focus will be to carry this calm awareness with us for the remainder of this session and this evening.
Thank you, Wendy. Mindfulness is our theme of the day, so you'll be hearing some more on mindfulness later, and we even have a mindfulness fellowship group today. But for now, we're going to hand it over to Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. That was so nice in the middle of our service. I think we should do that each week and just take a moment together. Thank you, Wendy. At the Compassion Consortium, we believe that everyone deserves a place of belonging, support, and spiritual nourishment. Everything we offer is made possible by the generosity of our community, whether through one-time donations or ongoing support from our monthly Compassionist community members. Every gift matters. Because our work is offered freely, it isn't always visible that real people are sustaining it behind the scenes. If you feel led, signing up for as little as a $5, $10, or $20 a month donation to support our work will help sustain the programs, gatherings like this, and resources that make Compassionist Circle events and community care possible. By becoming a Compassionist, you ensure that our programs remain accessible and welcoming to all who feel called to be here. Your monthly support sustains us and nurtures our community rooted in compassion for animals and the humans who advocate for them. And now's the perfect time to join and attend a brand new special Compassionist only event in February. You can also make a one-time donation by debit card, credit card, Zelle, or PayPal by either clicking the donation link in the chat box or using your phone to scan the QR code on screen. Thank you for walking this path of compassion with us. If you have any questions or need support, always feel free to email me at jennifer@compassionconsortium.com. And now here's Victoria and Priya.
Hi, everybody. And continuing with the theme of mindfulness, our wonderful guest today is a mindfulness practitioner. She's an author, she's a filmmaker, and she is a Brahmin. So we're going to be talking about all those things. Welcome, Priya.
Thank you.
So lovely to have you. I know we had a lovely pre-chat the other evening. Whenever I talk to people who are so spiritual and so connected, it just always gives me thrills and chills. So wonderful to have that experience again. So tell us, Priya, what it's like to, or what it means is what I should say, to be a Hindu Brahmin.
Sure. So, yeah, for me, it was just something that was just a regular part of life. I was born in Bengal, India, and immigrated when I was 7, and we never consumed meat. So I speculate no one in my ancestry has consumed meat. So this was a default, regular part of life to me. It was normal. And so it was more, an experience of what was different when I moved to the US after the age of 7 and was even pulled into a kind of a brawl in the second grade when a classmate wanted me to eat her chicken instead of the Indian food that I brought to school.
Yeah, kids are great, right? So talk to us a little bit about the faith. I mean, I think that most Westerners who haven't studied other religions, we know that there's polytheism, we know that there's a belief in reincarnation, we know that vegetarianism is in there, but I think we don't really know much. Can you fill us in, please?
Sure. So, in India, there is the caste system, and then part of it is so the Brahmins are considered like the priestly caste, and we're supposed to be like the upholders of Hinduism. So, my father, for instance, could perform weddings, and so he had that capacity as a Brahmin. And the way that I was raised in it was more ritualistic rather than a lot of like philosophical exchanges or talking about ahimsa. So, for instance, we had a puja room in one of the bedrooms in Charlotte, North Carolina, and one of the bedrooms was converted to a puja room, to basically a prayer room. So there were a lot of pictures of deities and statues. So before each meal, I would be asked to go offer food to Krishna, to God. And so I would do that. But again, for me, it was just kind of, I was a 16-year-old thinking, well, there's stuff I want to be doing. And I didn't quite always understand why am I doing this? But it's, we did these rituals. My mother was not educated and she was, was more ritualistic. We went on pilgrimages in India to visit, shrines, and then we went to Hare Krishna temples in the U.S. So again, it was more ritualistic versus trying to have philosophical exchanges to learn about Hinduism, about ahimsa. So I try to do some of that on my own in college and beyond.
So what have you learned in college and beyond?
So, my own spiritual journey, I realized as a teenager, I was reading books, New Age types of books, Richard Bach, Shirley MacLaine. So I was developing my own kind of sense of spirituality. And I also looked into, do I want to continue being vegetarian? And so I did research and I decided I did. And I was even interviewed by Vegetarian Times about it. I did speeches um, in debate team. I did original oratory, and I, competed in speeches on vegetarianism that I memorized overnight. So I was this activist on vegetarianism, and the research I did, I did not come across veganism. I did not, understand about dairy. And so that was kind of part of my evolution was, having respect for that part of my heritage, continuing to live that way and not wanting to challenge the way that I was raised in terms of eating meat. And then it was more after I became vegan in 2017, becoming a mindfulness teacher and having to sign the precept to not harm, and then having to really do kind of a deep dive into what does this mean? What does this mean in terms of me being vegan, my ancestry, and how did we deal with dairy? That's become more my evolution.
So, when you were studying mindfulness and you signed this form, my understanding from our conversation the other night was that when you signed it, it included being vegan. But when most people signed it, it didn't include that. Tell us about that.
Right. And so, yeah, that was a very pivotal point in the 2-year program for me was realizing how my classmates were perceiving this. Whereas for me, there was alignment, as a vegan. It made sense that, that's part of veganism to not harm. But then I was seeing a lot of discussions from classmates around justifications such as humane slaughter, or their ancestral ways of being, or other justifications. And so I was very struck by this and experienced a vegan microaggression, which I learned about in the program as we studied microaggressions. I realized there are, various vegan microaggressions that we experience all the time. And I experienced that with my mentor, who was dismissive of my story as we discussed what this precept meant for us. And so I felt that I needed a vegan mentor, and I requested that, but apparently there was not one for me to have. And so we were asked to go through meetings and exchanges, my mentor and I, to sort of resolve our differences in a sense. So over conversations, over about 6 months, he indicated he felt like he was transitioning from being vegetarian to vegan. And so I realized that my focus in the program was shifting towards what I'm now considering vegan mindfulness. This whole I consider an area of mindfulness, that it's very intertwined. And so that's the direction I ended up going. And after the program, starting to work on a short film called Do No Harm, which is directly from the precept. And I was motivated to proceed on my experience from the program and even going on retreats, like yoga retreats, mindfulness retreats. I would find myself being the only vegan. And so I realized just how widespread a lack of veganism was in the mindfulness community, not just in the teaching program, where one of the teachers is not vegan. Um, and so I found a lot of disconnect in the way that I was taught and in the widespread mindfulness community, and how there is a spiritual bypassing around veganism that I experienced a lot with most of my classmates, 2,500 classmates in the program, and then beyond in the spiritual mindfulness community.
Ah, that's too bad. And that's one of the reasons we founded the Compassion Consortium, because people are in so many beautiful spiritual traditions that have so much to offer the world. And yet there's this disconnect here. So hopefully we can take from those traditions, learn from them, use them for our spiritual growth, and contribute something too as vegans and people who really have reverence for life in forms other than the human. So I know that you were in India studying everything and making your film. So tell us a little bit about that. And I know you're not going to go into any icky detail about sadness of cows and calves, but there is sadness for cows and calves. And if there weren't, we wouldn't be vegan. So tell us a little bit about your experience in India in particular.
Sure. So I went in December of 22 after 15 years. I went to visit my mother in Ahmedabad, India, for 3 weeks, and then also to get footage in the city. And so I visited 4 dairy farms, and I also met the vegan community there. And so I got a lot of footage of the farms, of what it's actually like, and of the community. So to also show us, a sign of hope for the future in terms of the existence of the vegan community there, and to show that we're everywhere globally. Um, and so that was a very promising, positive part of the trip. In terms of what I experienced, I had done some research to learn what was actually happening to cows behind the scene. So I got to see firsthand the reality that we all know of what really happens with cows and their babies, and how we end up having dairy. And that's in my trailer in Do No Harm, just to show how do we have dairy, and how global dairy consumption begins. And so that those elements that we all know are included, that are difficult. So I did see, firsthand that process, and I don't want to get, I suppose, too graphic with that. And one of the dairy farm owners that I visited, she said that this is how it's done. So although it's not legal, um, there is just the process that we know, in terms of how you get dairy, and that is there in India. And a lot of the cows that are just ubiquitous, a lot of them are maybe cows that are considered dry and no longer produce, so they may be let out in the streets. And so they're a normalized part of life that people are used to seeing the cows around. I've seen them not be very nice to them. So there is that contradiction of cows being sacred and how they're really treated. But I don't want to say that in any way to shame the Indian community, because again, we know that cruelty is normalized globally in so many ways, and how here in the US too, we can see things but not really, right? That we're not necessarily being mindful of what it is that is being consumed and what is happening behind the scenes.
It's so fascinating to me that there is an almost global addiction to dairy. And in India, where ahimsa, where the sacredness of the cow is part of the tradition, and you mentioned the word illegal. A lot of people don't know that it's only legal to kill a cow in 2 Indian states. And yet, the way that dairy is obtained in any commercial way is the same in US or European factory farming, small farms in India, any farms anywhere. It's just the nature of the thing, and it's something that most people don't understand. To this day, most people think cows just give milk like trees drop leaves in the fall. It's rather remarkable.
It is, yeah, and that word "give" is very common in India. That the activists there try to refute that no, they do not give milk, but I think it's similar with this idea of the happy cow, concept here, and I really wanted to bring this sense of how we've all been conditioned and sort of lied to, right, in a sense globally, and how we've all been raised, and so like the start of my trailer shows commercials that we grew up with. And so it begins with the TV and the commercials. So I really wanted to have it be not accusatory, not shaming, and just bring awareness to something that has happened with all of us. That we're all in this. We've all been conditioned. I loved dairy. I grew up with it. And, I used to tell myself, even as I was transitioning, considering veganism prior to 2017, I would sort of delude myself thinking that if I got like Indian dairy desserts from the Indian store, then I would somehow be bypassing like cruelty from factory farms because it's different in India. This was before my trip. So I think that this is this part of what is happening with all of us that we get conditioned. And I've also tried to address that in my book, bringing awareness to the conditioning and how mindfulness helps to break through that conditioning when we can slow down and become aware without the defenses of what is really happening, then that is the beginning of shifting.
So tell us again the name of your book and your film. I see that some of this just went up in the chat so that people can find your book and your trailer.
So, my book is called Go Vegan Mindfully. It is on Amazon, Apple, and Google Play. And then, and this can also be found on my website, priacharya.com with one A. And there's a link to the trailer there.
Okay, wonderful. And in just our last couple of minutes, what's your plan? What are you doing? What are you working on now? And how can we help?
Well, launching the book, and I would love to circle back to the short film and try to proceed with post-production. My video editor had felt like we needed more financial support to be able to complete it. We have all the footage. And so that is my next hope is to finally be able to complete that short film and hoping that once and if that happens, we could proceed to a full feature down the road that continues the journey.
So you are speaking now to 65 people, and after it goes on YouTube and goes up on our website, there will be lots more into the future. So let's just pretend that instead of 65 people, there were 650,000, and you could leave them with one thought. What would it be?
I would just ask to slow down and consider just small things that can be done. Perhaps, considering plant milk instead of dairy milk and making small changes and just continuing from there.
I love it. And even those of us who feel we've made some big changes can keep making small changes, and then maybe it'll go from small to big to ginormous, as kids like to say.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Priya.
Thanks
you.
for
being with us, and thanks for all that you do, and sending it back to Jen.
So during every Sunday service, we offer a song of compassion for your consideration and silent reflection. This month at Furever Farm, these beautiful rescued animals, once victims of exploitation, now get to enjoy peace, freedom, and even the joy of live music. Farmed animal sanctuaries do more than provide safety. They educate the public about animal rights and the principles of veganism. So let's stand with them today as we watch this and help create a world where all animals are free and can also enjoy songs by the Beatles.
Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Ask me and I will play so sweetly. I'll make you smile. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. All your life, you're only waiting for this moment to rise.
Doesn't that just make you want to be there with them, enjoying all that music and their wonderful, all the joy they have? And now it's up to Jess now.
Hello, thank you, everyone. Today we are celebrating that there is a long-awaited rule restricting gestational crates for pregnant sows that was implemented this year, 2026. These crates severely limit movement and have been criticized as inhumane. The change represents a significant welfare milestone for more than 2.5 million hogs in Ohio. In a news article for the Columbus Dispatch, a co-owner of a 6,000 pig farm said, quote, "It's a giant step backwards. This makes me sick to my stomach." He then informed the newspaper that he plans to stop raising pigs when the ban on gestational crates takes effect. That sounds more like good news to me. And offering a blessing for our pig friends. May pigs everywhere be free, free from pain, free from cages, free from oppression and fear. May they be happy. May they be safe. And may human hearts grow in their ability to choose compassion over profit. And may justice continue to unfold one small change at a time. And now it's time for our blessing and prayer segment of Sunday service.
Thank you, Jess. That is good news. And when someone starts to say, well, I'm not going to do that anymore, I think that's double good news, right? Yeah. Yeah. As Victoria just said, sometimes those small changes lead to big changes, lead to ginormous changes. And that's what we are hoping for around here for our animal cohabitants. So please do add your prayer needs and your good news in the chat. You know, this is a group, this is a fellowship, this is a community. So please attend to each other. Put whatever is going on for you in the chat, and then respond to each other, offering your empathy, offering your congratulations for the good news, offering support, offering love, offering care, offering concern for what needs to be witnessed in this community. And as you do so, we'll return to those in a moment, but as you do so, Phil's going to bring another, I said it's a full house in here today. Could you bring Des up, Phil, with me for a special blessing? We're going to talk about cows. So let's see, we dogs, pigs, I saw sheep. I haven't seen cats today yet. I'm gonna get a talking to from Bubba G and Deacon when I get back. Maybe we need more cats next month. But so many animals we've been talking about today, and we're going to continue talking about cows, as Priya and Victoria brought up in their wonderful conversation together. So let me introduce you to Des. Des is going to help me with a special blessing for cows, captive and animal-based agriculture. I think I just mentioned that. Desiree Chantilly is a caregiver, puppeteer, animal advocate, an ordained minister. I just have to say that again. A caregiver, a puppeteer, animal advocate, and ordained minister who's been touched by a sacred connection to Mother Earth through seasons of harvesting in California's Central Valley. She now resides at her animal sanctuary in Central Florida and is preparing to serve as an animal chaplain through Compassion Consortium. Yes, folks, Des is a fire horse, so that is coming on soon. Des, can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to create this blessing? What was going on? I mean, we tell people around here all the time, that you can create blessings during the day, right? That as you see something going on, as you see something you want to respond to, animals you want to honor, or something that's tugging at your heart, that these can be on the spot practices, not just what we do here on Sunday service. And I think that your blessing is very much that. So tell us what was going on a little bit, and then Phil's going to play the video.
Well, thank you so much, Reverend Sarah, for the introduction and for inviting me here this Sunday with all of you lovely people. It was so I had the assignment to do a living blessing that you assigned. And I was just walking my dogs, and I happened to cross these cows, and I decided I would, give a blessing to them. And I wanted to just read this. Do I read it now? Yeah.
Go for it.
In many sacred traditions, a blessing is not merely a kind wish. It is a word spoken toward a future not yet seen. In scripture, blessings often move like prophecy, naming not what is, but what is longing to become. To bless is to speak from sacred imagination. It is to stand in the present and refuse to let it have the final word. When I offer a living blessing to the cows down my street, may they someday be free from exploitation. May they no longer be seen as commodities. I'm not denying their reality. I'm calling forth another one. In the biblical tradition, blessings were often spoken at thresholds, at moments of vulnerability and transition. There were acts of hope spoken aloud, trusting that love could travel further than circumstance. To bless these animals is to see them not for their usefulness, but for their presence. It is to witness their lives as holy, even in a world that has forgotten how to do so. As I continue my formation as an animal chaplain, I'm learning that blessing can be a quiet form of resistance, a way of holding to the hope of safety where harm has been normalized, and of holding open the possibility of a more compassionate world. May our blessings keep calling that world toward us. Thank you.
Beautifully said, Des.
Thank you.
Beautifully articulated. Yeah, folks, there's power. There's power in this practice. So, Phil, can you bring up Des's blessing for us to take a look at? Experience what she just shared about.
May you know what it's like to not feel like a commodity. May you someday, species of your kind, be totally free from exploitation and murder. May people grow to understand your intrinsic value and stop using you for your meat, milk, and everything. We love you.
Take a moment, folks, to take that in. We put these services together, and sometimes I don't see how well they weave until we're towards the end of them. Des and 2 walking dogs. We started with some walking dogs, didn't we? The cows that Pria spoke about. The cows that Des came across. How do we have compassion for all of these beings in all of these ways? Des, some folks in the chat have said they're mooing back with you in agreement. How did it feel when that was going on? Did it feel like that might be the case?
That's what I was feeling too.
It's possible. It's possible, folks. It's possible. Phil, could you bring up our closing blessing slide, and Des and I will lead you all in this. These are words that we all say together each Sunday service. Believing that they do have intention, and they do have a power to them, and they secure where we're headed, what we want to see in this world. And may these words, as we say them, become closer and closer into being for all creatures everywhere. Des, will you join me with this one? All right. May all creatures everywhere
be happy
and free.
May the
thoughts, words,
and
actions of our lives
contribute to the
this happiness
and this
freedom for all.
us.
Folks, please close with whatever your ending word is from your spiritual tradition or your religion, whether that is, may it be so, amen, amen, so mote it be, ashe, shanti, 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 and so it is. Thank you for joining us for Sunday service. Please stick around for fellowship right after some short announcements from Jen.
Now, while I read a few short announcements, remember that Phil has given you all the opportunity to turn on your video cameras if you'd like. We'd love to see all your beautiful faces as we close the service, which was a wonderful one today, and move into our fellowship time. So please feel free to stick around and join us for one of our rooms. Please join us for our February service with Rayanne Laddie. Watch your email for our February newsletter for updates on the service and more. You can register for next month at the link in the chat. Our Compassionist Circle will meet on Tuesday, January 27th at 8 p.m. Eastern. You'll join me for a gentle, restorative, heart-centered New Year gathering created to nourish your spirit and realign your path with compassion. If you are a compassionist at any level of monthly giving, please join us for this or another upcoming Compassionist Circle. These events are especially for you to give you a small group interactive experience of fellowship, practice, and support. And don't forget about our monthly recurring gatherings for vegan meditation, activist well-being, and pet loss support circle. Details are always available on our website and in the monthly newsletter.